Welcome to the channel Get Rich. Today, the company we are going to analyze belongs to small finance banking. So, first, let's look at the opportunity of India in small finance banking. So, the company we are going to look into is AU Small Finance Bank. So, their main business comes from automobile sector and secured business loans and other sectors. So, let's have a look at the automobile sector. So the automobile sector contributes about 7.5% of India's GDP and directly and indirectly employs about 3.7 crore people and continues to present a significant opportunity for financiers. In recent years, the opportunity in vehicle financing business have expanded beyond the traditional core segment of new vehicles to the used vehicle and refinance as well. Look at the opportunity of India. So India has 718 district and 138 lakh crore deposits, and they have 2.15 crore new vehicle sales in financial 19 and 20. And AU Small Finance Bank, they have only 2.9 new vehicle financed by them. So look at their opportunity, how much they can grow in this sector. And the other sector, which is MSME or secured business loans for small, micro, and medium enterprises. So India is home to about 6.33 crore MSMEs, which are the backbone of the Indian economy, accounting for 30% of nominal GDP. Recent reforms and focused initiatives aim to increase the sector's contribution to GDP to over 50% as the nation aspires to be a $5 trillion economy. The opportunity, if you look at the MSMEs, so the number of registered MSMEs in India is 6.33 crore, and AU Small Finance Bank, they service about 1.2 lakh number of MSME finance. Look at the growth opportunity ahead for them. So they can grow tremendously in both of the sector. So before going into detail about AU Small Finance Bank, let's first have a look at small finance bank as an industry. So small finance banks had been introduced by the RBI with the intent of driving financial inclusion for the unbanked and underbanked sections of the economy. In their 3 years of existence, small finance banks have made their presence felt, growing their market share in both loans and deposits. If you have a look at the growth trajectory for small finance banks have been gaining market share in loans and grew at a CAGR of 26% from 2015-16 to 2018-19 and should continue to gain the market share in the medium term. So if you have a look at the share of top 3 small finance banks, AU Small Finance Banks being one of them, increased between financial year 2015 to 16 to financial 2018 to 19. If you have a look at their market share split, in financial 2015 to 16, top 3 small finance banks have market share of 53%, and in financial 2018 to 19 it increased to 64%. So the top 3 banks, small finance banks, are gaining market share against other players. And if you look at the share of small finance bank as a total of deposit credit in the banking industry, so in the deposit it's just 0.5% of the total, and in the credit it's 0.9%, and reporting offices it's 2.8% as a share of total banking industry. So this is all about small finance banking, and it's just small. It just started 3 years ago, and it is growing big. Like it is growing at a CAGR of 20-25% over for the past 3 years, and it is projected to increase at 25% in the future coming years also. So then let's have a look at AU Small Finance Bank, how it is started and how it is developed to this small finance bank. So AU Small Finance Bank was set up in 1996 by Mr. Sanjay Agarwal with the aim of specializing in vehicle financing to individuals that did not have access to formal sources of funding, especially in the unserved areas. In its early years, AU also partnered with HDFC Bank to source and service vehicle loans. This relationship with HDFC Bank assisted AU in implementing various systems and processes which helped AU to swiftly build its capabilities and move up the learning curve. From financial year 2007 to 2017, they started to diversify their business. So they replicated the success of vehicle financing in small business loans. So once AU felt it had achieved scale, profitability, and superior asset quality in the vehicle business, it expanded into small business loans or secured business loans in 2007, which today has grown to become almost as big as the vehicle business at 39% of total loans. AU also diversified into lending to SMEs, NBFC, and real estate companies. And then the transition from NBFC to Small Finance Bank, AU Small Finance Bank. So AU obtained the Small Finance Bank license in December 2016, and the company commenced Small Finance Bank operations in April 2017. This transition from NBFC to Small Finance Bank offered the company opportunities for growth on the back of diversified portfolio and access to low-cost retail deposits. Over financial 2018 and financial 2019, AU Small Finance Bank converted and refurbished its existing branches as well as expanded aggressively, resulting in a sharp jump in the cost income ratio, which I will come in detail in the coming slides. So thus affecting profitability. So cost income ratio spiked from an average of 38% over financial 2013 to 17 to 58% over financial 2018 to 19. And then after financial 2019, they resumed profitable pace post a 2-year pause due to Small Finance Bank transition. So they are present in 12 states and 2 union territories. They have 697 touch points, 18.1 lakh customers, and they have 16,755 employees. And if you have a look at the total balance sheet, it grew 23% from September 2019 to September 2020. And if you look at the loan disbursements, it degrew by 29% because of this COVID quarter, that this quarter mainly affect due to COVID impact. And then if you have a look at the loan assets under management, it increased by 10%. And if you have a look at the deposits, it increased by 22%. And if you have a look at the CASA ratio, it was 16% in September 2019 and increased to 21% in the last quarter. Also, if we have a look at their market share, they are gaining market share. 36 branches now above 5% market share in deposits. 5 branches are greater than 10% market share. They also added branch footprint in 11 new locations including Agra, Jammu and Kanpur. Their branch expansion to continue as planned. Let's have a look at their net interest income. So their total income increased from 1015 crores to 4992 crores. It's a total income. It's driven by higher customer wallet share and also geographical expansion. And if you have a look at the net interest income, so what is net interest income? So the net interest income is banks get money from retail depositors or borrowing. They get a money at a cost, so they have to pay, and they loan to potential customers and they get some interest in return. So the difference between the interest they get from the customers and the interest they have to pay to the depositors, that difference is net interest margin. So based on this net interest margin, they get net interest income. So this net interest income increased from 620 crores to 1909 crores in 2019 to 20. If you look at the CAGR, it increased by 33%. The 5-year CAGR is 33% net interest income increase. And if you look at the total income increase, it is 47%, which is 5-year CAGR. It has grown massively. If you have a look at their cost of funds, so what is the cost of funds? So the cost of funds is something they get from the depositors or borrowers. They have to provide this money to the retail depositors. So then the cost of funds decreased from 10% in financial 2016 to almost 7.7% in financial 2020. So the net interest margin, as I just explained, so the net interest margin, it decreased from 8.5% in financial 2016 to almost 5.4% in financial 2020. I expect the net interest margin to be constant or stable in the coming years. And then if we have a look at their total deposits to borrowings, so initially they don't have any total deposit to borrowings because they don't have any deposits from the retail customers because they are not banks during the initial years. And then they got small finance banking license in financial 2017, and then they started getting deposits from retail investors or other investors as well. So the total deposits to total borrowings ratio, it was 51% in financial 2018 and 69% in financial 2019 and 72% in financial 2020. So they are going to increase their total deposits to total borrowings ratio. That's a very good thing for the company. And then let's have a look at their loan book. So what is a loan book? So the loan book is something they provide to their customers. So which customers or which sectors they provided loans to, because they are a small finance bank, so they are in lending business, so they will be lending money to other people. Their main core lending business is in wheels, which is a vehicle finance business. So they give money to buy vehicles to people. So they have big chunk of their business comes from vehicle financing, and then the 42% is coming from small business lending or secured business loans. So they do it to small, micro and medium enterprises. And then they have agri, SME, and business banking and so on, which are pretty small. The main two business is vehicle finance business and then small business loans. And then if you look at the overall loan AUM and where it is distributed, most of their business comes from Rajasthan. 42% is coming from Rajasthan, and then 16% from Madhya Pradesh, and then 12% from Maharashtra, and 11% from Gujarat. So Rajasthan is pretty important for them, and also they have a pretty advantage in Rajasthan because the number of the population density is pretty small in Rajasthan, and it is not easy to expand in Rajasthan. So they have a key advantage. They are in Rajasthan, and it's not easy for the competitors to take up their business in Rajasthan. Let's have a look at year over year how their business sectors progressed. So in quarter 1 financial 2017, they had around 51% vehicle finance, and then the smaller 27% is other small finance, small business loans. And then if you look at the second quarter financial year 2021, this vehicle finance loans are decreasing, so it reduced from 51% to 40%. And then if you look at their small business loans, it increased from 27% to 40%. So now it's almost the vehicle finance business and the small business loan business is almost the same or at equivalent compositions. And if you have a look at their AUM, they grown their AUM pretty huge. AUM is nothing but asset under management, and in the recent quarters it's not grown. That's because of COVID, but other than that they are going pretty nicely. But something to note is also their growth rates are decreasing. If you have a look at their different sectors, so if you look at the vehicle business, their AUM is 12,326 crores, and they have 40% business from vehicle finance. And then if you look at their small business loans, it's around 39%, and then the other home loan are 2%, gold loans, personal loans is just 1%, and then their overdraft facility, which is 2%, and their total retail assets, it's 84%. Look at that, they have 84% retail assets. They are giving loans to retail people. Usually the NPAs or non-performing assets are pretty low for retail people. And also if you look at their other business banking, agri, NBFC, they also 16% to total small and mid corporate assets are 16%. And then if you have a look at their AUM, how much yield they get from their AUM, it was 14.7% in quarter 2 financial 2020, and quarter 2 financial 2021 it was 14.4%. They are getting yield from their asset under management. And there if we see their average cost of fund, it's 7.8% in quarter 2 financial 2020, it's 7% in quarter 2 financial 2021. So their net interest margin is increasing, so that's a good thing. But I expect their net interest margin to be stable in the coming years. And then if you look at their asset under management, as I said, they have 84% retail asset and 16% small and medium corporate. And if you have a look at their deposits is something they get where they get from money. So the deposits, 84% is term deposits, and they have 11% savings account deposits, and 5% current account deposits. I will get in detail in deposits in some time. So then let's have a look at their loan disbursements, how they are disbursing their loans. So recently their loan disbursements went down huge because of COVID impact, and already their loan disbursements are increasing. So that's a good news. And then if you have a look at their vehicle loan business, so let's just have a look at their vehicle loan business. First, the vehicle loans in India is one of the largest automobile markets in the world. So the sector contributes about 7.5% of Indian GDP and employs directly and indirectly 3.7 crore people, while continue to present a significant opportunity for financiers. It is expected that post-COVID-19 lockdown, there could be an increase in demand for vehicles arising from preference. The vehicle loans market stood at 4.4 trillion, growing at 10.3 year over year as on 30th September 2019. Though original volumes and balances declined on the back of tepid demands, despite the ongoing slowdown in vehicle sales, the structural growth outlook remains intact, as vehicle sales are likely to benefit from relatively low car penetration, emerging demographic dividend, increasing urbanization and nuclearization, rising income levels, and consumption. And also they are penetrating into used vehicles. The Indian used car market was valued at $24.2 billion in 2019, with the pre-owned car market rapidly evolving in recent years. As per the Indian Blue Book, it crossed the 4 million unit mark and stood at 1.2x the size of new car market. Their vehicle loan has been a key product since their inception and is the most seasoned book in their portfolio. Despite sluggish growth in the overall automobile sector, their vehicle loan AUM recorded a growth of 27%, and stood at 12,985 crore, comprising 42% of their total AUM during financial 2019 to 20. Their wheels or vehicle loan disbursements grew 16% year over year during the reporting year. Average ticket size for this product was 2.4 lakh for financial 2019 to 20. So if you have a look at their vehicle loan segment by split, they have 62% is coming from their new vehicle financing business and 23% is coming from used vehicle financing business, and then they have cash on wheels as 14% and some as trade advance. And if you have a look at the further split of which vehicle is they are financing, it's 40% is personal car and commercial car 18%, light commercial vehicle 26%, heavy commercial vehicle 5%, tractors 6%, and construction equipments 3%, three-wheelers 2%, and so on. Look at the future projections for passenger vehicles. They are expecting to grow at 7 to 9% for financial 2019 to 2024, and in commercial vehicles 6 to 8%, three-wheelers 10 to 12%, two-wheeler 5 to 7%. It's a projected growth of vehicle loan business. If you have a look at the next one, which is secured business loans or small business loans. So globally, MSMEs are regarded as an engine of equitable economic development, providing large employment opportunities in less developed regions. In India too, MSMEs have been the backbone of the Indian economy. According to the annual report of the Ministry MSME of Financial 2018 to 19, India is home to 6.34 crore MSMEs. 51% are in rural areas and more than 99% of them are categorized as micro, which cumulatively accounted for 30% of nominal GDP. These MSMEs together employ 11.1 crore people, with micro enterprises accounting for 97% of the total employment in the MSME sector. So their secured business loan MSME is a key product for AU Small Finance Bank within their retail asset segment and comprise 36.5% of their total AUM as on 31st March 2020. So their loans primarily serve MSMEs with annual turnover between 40 lakh and 10 crore, having at least a few years of track record in such businesses, generating cash flows at high frequency and having limited or no formal documented income proofs. So such loans are then secured by a immovable property, and the uses include working capital needs, expansion, purchase of machines, equipments, and infrastructure requirements. They understand their customer business and their future requirements to arrive at the loan amount that can be offered to them. They also cater to larger business in terms of turnover, which have more formal and documented income proof. Their target small and medium sized enterprises includes traders, wholesalers, distributors, retailers, manufacturers, and self-employed professionals, and these loans are meant to meet their need for expansion, working capital, and purchase of equipments. So their gross AUM for their SBL business increased by 44% year over year to 11,287 crores as on 31st March 2020. So their SBL disbursements grew 32% year over year to 4,865 crore in financial 2019 to 20, and their average ticket size for this product was 9.4 lakh for financial 2019 to 20. And if you look at their some tailwinds for this sector, so they have a demand supply gap. For example, they have NBFCs and they have government and bank institutions, and the total supply or credit supply they have these MSMEs, they have around 10.9. So if you have a look at the total addressable demand, it's 36.7 lakh crore. So look at the gap between the supply and demand. So they have a huge opportunity for growth. And also if you have a look at their market share, which is shifting from public sector banks to private banks and NBFCs. So in September 2017, 57.2% is served by PSU banks, and then in September 2019 it's already 48.2%, and then the NBFCs and private banks are taking over these PSU banks in the sector. So the small finance banks, they have a huge opportunities coming ahead in this sector as well. And then if you have a look at the other loans, so what are the other loans they are providing? So they are providing housing loans, and they are providing gold loans, and they are doing personal loans and other small loans. So if you have a look at the housing loans first, of India's 130 crore plus population, rural population constitutes over 60%, where there is a massive shortage of housing, and for the rapid urbanization is also increasing the demand for housing in urban areas. Under the Housing for All scheme, 60 million houses are to be built, 40 million in rural areas and 20 million in urban areas by 2022, which will provide significant demand growth for the housing finance industry. Overall, the mortgage market in India is relatively underpenetrated compared to peers. According to industry estimates, Indian mortgage penetration stood at 10% compared to the peers. If you look at Netherlands, it's 91. If you look at Australia, 67. If you look at USA, it's 50%. In India, look at the number, it's 10% mortgage as a percentage of nominal GDP. So I am bullish on housing finance companies, especially the leaders. So you know whom to pick. I'm also bullish on housing finance companies because look at the penetration level. It's only 10% mortgage as a percentage of nominal GDP. So look at the growth lies ahead for India. India has a huge opportunity lies ahead for housing finance companies. So their home loan business increased by 388% to 567 crores as on 31st March 2020 from just 116 crore a year earlier. So home loan disbursement increased by 326% to 490 crore from 115 crore in 2018 to 19. So they are having a huge growth in this segment. And then if you have a look at their other segment, which is consumer electronics or appliances market in India, consumer durable loans remain one of the fastest growing sector within the banking industry. More players, banks as well as NBFCs entered the segment during the year. Asset quality remains strong in this segment. And then if you have a look at the other segments also, so if you look at their AUM mix and the AUM growth CAGR, so the vehicle finance business, they have the 20% growth rate for financial 2020 to 2023, and small business loans 30%, SMEs 25%, home affordable 40%. Look at the growth rate prediction. Financial 2020 to 2023, home affordable 40%. You can play this opportunity as well. And then gold, personal loan and other overdraft facility 18% in total. Their retail AUM growth CAGR can be 25%. And then NBFC real estate is 2% and 1%, corporate is 2%. So their total loans can grow at 25% CAGR from financial 2020 to 2023, which is a projection. If you have a look at the deposits, so their breakup of total deposits, so 30% is coming from their core markets, which is rural market, and then 70% it is coming from urban markets. If you look at the current account, it's 67% from urban market and 33% from rural market. Savings account 57% from urban market, 43% from rural market. And then term deposit 77% is coming from urban market and 23% is coming from rural market. And then if you have a look at the deposit across states, so the Maharashtra 29% of their deposits are coming from Maharashtra, and 27% from Rajasthan, and 14% from Delhi NCR, and 8% from Punjab. So these are all the deposit profiles where their deposits are coming from. And then if you have a look at the profile of depositors, so in September 2019, 36% of deposits comes from individuals such as sole proprietor partnerships, and then 27% from corporate, 22% from banks. If you look at September 2020, so 48% is coming from individuals. Their individuals deposit share is increasing. That's a good news. They should have retail deposits so that they can have a less cost of funds. That's a good thing. And then they have corporate, which is almost the same from 27 to 25, and then the banks, they are decreasing. And then if you look at the cost to income ratio, so what is cost to income ratio? So they are generating some income, and what are the cost as a percentage to their income? So usually the lesser the better. So they had 41.6% in financial 2015 to 16. In financial 2016 to 17, it's 38.2%. But then it increased because they just entered into small finance business, and it increased to 60%, and now it started to decreasing to 54%. So that's good thing. Have a look at their retail deposits. So the retail savings account, it's around 85% in September 2019, and September 2020 it's 91%, and bulk is 9%. And then if you have a look at the CASA ratio, it increased from 16% to 21% in September 2020. That's a good thing. CASA ratio is improving. And then if you have a look at their retail term deposit to bulk term deposits, it 48% in September 2020 and 52% from bulk term deposits in September 2020. So then let's have a look at gross and net NPA. So what is NPA? NPA is non-performing asset. So why is it important to look into non-performing asset? Because if the borrower go into default, or some companies they go into default, and then they have to provide provisions, and then their profit drops. That's why it's important to look into non-performing assets. So if you have a look at the gross non-performing asset, so it is reducing from 3% to almost 1.5% in quarter of financial 2021. That's a good thing. And if you have a look at the net non-performing asset, which is also reducing from 1.5% to 0.5%. So what is the difference between gross NPA and net NPA? So the gross NPA is the amount which are potentially can be defaulted or cannot come from the borrowers, and they can take some provisions and they can put it aside. So once the provisions are taken from the gross NPA, the remaining amount, which is unprovisionized, which is net NPA. So that's the difference between gross NPA and net NPA. So then if you have a look at the gross NPA ratio for major assets, so the agriculture, the gross NPA is increasing, and then the industry, which is also increasing, services, which is increasing. Look at the retail loans, which is pretty low. That's why retail loans are pretty good business. If you have a look at their gross NPA for different sectors, so vehicle it's 1.6%, and their small business loans 1.5%, and then their other business 0.5, and NBFC 0.5, and real estate is pretty big, it's 3%, but then they have a pretty low exposure to real estate. And then if you have a look at the different companies, so for example Shriram Transport Finance, and it's 7.3%, and then Mahindra and Mahindra Financial Services Limited, which is 7%, and then Shriram City Union Finance, which is 6.7%, Cholamandalam 2.8%, Sundaram Finance 2.4%, and AU Small Finance 1.5%. It's pretty huge. They are doing pretty good in non-performing assets. And also if you have a look at the provision coverage ratio, it is also they are doing better. So they have 71% against other people which are around 50% or 45% or 43%. So they are also doing great in this particular ratio, provision coverage ratio as well. If you have a look at the total non-paying customers as a percentage of total, in Mahindra and Mahindra Financial Services Limited it is 12.5%, in Equitas is 7.5%, Cholamandalam 5%, and then AU Small Finance Bank 3%. So they are also doing good. That's good. If you compare with different companies, they are doing good. They are in a very good position. If you look at their how their NPAs are performing over the years from financial 2009 to financial 2020, so there are many crises. There are global finance crisis, downturn in auto industry, demonetization, and again downturn in auto industry. With all these shocks, they are still withstanding, and they are still maintaining their NPAs in a reasonable amount. That's a very good thing. So they are a very pretty stable company. So it's a very nice thing to see. It visualize how they are observing the financial shocks or crisis. So they are doing pretty good. So they will bounce back from this COVID crisis as well. And then let's have a look at their COVID impact. So if you have a look at their collection efficiency in quarter 2 financial 2020, it was 98%, and then quarter 1 financial 2020 it decreased to 68%, and then quarter 2 financial 2021 it again increased to 96%. So what is collection efficiency? It's the amount of loan which their amount of EMIs they are getting back from the customers every monthly payment as a percentage. So 96% of people paid EMI, so that's good. And then if you have a look at their NBFC exposure, they have pretty less exposure to NBFC. And then if you look at their risk profile, they have almost 88%. Their exposure is in investment grade, and only 3.8% is in non-investment grade, and 7.9% in unrated. Also that's a good thing. And then if you look at their branches, so they have as I said, they have 12 states in 2 union territories, and they have 697 touch points, and mostly they are 15% in metropolitan, 22% in urban, 32% in semi-urban, and 31% in rural. And then if you have a look at their employee strength, it increased from 5,000 in financial 2015 to 16 to almost 17,000 in financial 2019 to 20. That's also a good thing. And then if you have a look at their digital initiatives, so they are doing pretty good. They're doing tab banking with people with tab. They just open accounts for rural people, and then they have video KYC, WhatsApp banking, and they also have access to all payment channels, and they're also doing in different class platforms pretty good. And they are also having multiple channels for customer service, chatbot, missed call banking, and WhatsApp banking like all the other players do. And they also have investment and saving solutions like 3-node trading account, online IPO application platform, insurance, and online mutual fund investment platform. And they are also enhancing their brand visibility. If you look at their most of their digital initiatives, they are doing new age internet and mobile banking, credit card, video banking, WhatsApp and chatbot banking, digital lending, and data analytics. Using data analytics, they are providing risk-based scorecards for different loans. That's also a pretty good thing. And then if you look at their digital usage trends, which is always going up, so that's good. And also number of credit card, debit card users, that's also going up. And then debit card transaction volumes, which is also increasing. That's nice to know. And then if you look at their UPI transactions, which is also going exponentially increasing, that's also good thing. So if you look at the paperless disbursements, it is increasing exponentially as well. That's a good thing because they are using technology to provide these kind of services to rural people. So that's a good thing. And also if you look at their AU Shopping Dhamaka, so they have biggest offers campaign launched with a different festival season, and they have engaged with pan-India e-commerce players like Amazon, Myntra, Grofers, Big Basket, and they are also doing hyper-local city-based merchants like LME, Kanji to provide offers on their debit cards. And during their campaigns, per day spend was 24% higher than the average, 78% 1% customers were new activations on Amazon for AU Bank. Online CASA leads per day went up by 5x during Amazon offer. 5x, 20x increase in per day transactions. They are doing pretty good in this digital initiatives. If you have a look at their financial statement, in March 2010 they have a net profit of 12 crores, and currently they are having a net profit of 675 crores in March 2020. Look at the growth. Their compounded sales growth was 55% for the past 10 years, and compounded profit growth was 50%. And then if you have a look at their profit after tax, which grows nicely, that's also a good thing. And earnings per share is also increasing with a CAGR of 37%. That's very good thing. And then if you have a look at different ratios, the total income, which is increasing by 20% half yearly or half yearly, and then net interest income increased by 27%, and then PAT increased by 28%, net worth increased by 40%. And then if you look at the cost of funds, that's pretty nice, as I explained. And then their ROA, which is also 1.7%, and ROE 17.5%, that's also great. Their NPAs are great, we just discussed. Provision coverage ratio is looking good, so they are doing pretty good in financials. And then if you look at their net interest margin year over year, or gross NPAs, or capital adequacy ratio, all this ratio, they are doing pretty good. I just explained. If you want to have a look at their year over year performance, you can have a look at these charts, but they are doing pretty good year over year as well. And then let's have a look at their balance sheet, how their balance sheet looks like. In September 30, 2019, they had a total assets of 35,000 crores, and currently, which is 44,000 crores, which had an increase of 23% year over year. Very good. And then if you have a look at their balance sheet over the past years, so from total assets of 245 crores in March 2010, it increased to 42,000 crores in March 2020. So that's pretty huge number. So they are increasing pretty good. And then if you have a look at their balance sheet indicators like net worth, they are doing pretty good. 5-year CAGR of 40%. Return on average assets, they are also doing pretty good, 1.8%. And return on average shareholders funds, which is ROE, which is also dipped due to the small finance banking entry, and currently it's back into the growth track. And also if you look at the capital adequacy ratio, they are maintaining a good capital adequacy ratio at 22% in financial 2019 to 20. So they are doing pretty good. And then if you have a look at the peer comparison, AU Bank, if you look at the PE, or price to book value, for me it looks bit expensive, because if you look at the state of the art bank, or if you look at the market leaders like HDFC Bank or Kotak Mahindra Bank, their P price to book value, which is around 4.66, or almost 5 for HDFC Bank, and almost 5.5, 5.6 for Kotak Mahindra Bank. But then currently here it states 4.96, but it was during the price range at 780 rupees. But at the time of recording this video, it's almost 920 rupees. So they went up a lot, and I feel they have a huge valuations, or higher valuation compared to other banks. I understand they have a pretty good ratios, or they have a pretty good growth rate. Everything is pretty good, and it looks to me they're slightly overvalued according to me. But let's discuss that in the valuation section. Then let's have a look at the shareholding pattern. So their promoter holds around 29%. And then if you look at the historical promoter holding in AU Small Finance Bank, it's decreased a bit, but then it's fine. And then if you have a look at that, in December 2020, the promoters did not pledge any of their shares. That's also a pretty good thing. If you have a look at the historical FII holding in Small Finance Bank, it increased from 22% to 32%, and it is constantly increasing. FII are buying, they are increasing their holding like anything. So FII are interested in this bank. And if you have a look at the mutual fund holding, which is also increasing from around like 10% to 10%, it's pretty stable. It increased and then decreased, but currently it's pretty stable. That's a good thing, because institutions are interested in this bank. Let's have a look at the pretty big funds which are holding this AU Small Finance Bank. So if you have a look at that, you have Motilal Oswal, Nomura, Capital Group, and then Westbridge, UTI, JP Morgan, HDFC Life, Vanguard. So they have a Nippon Mutual Fund. They have pretty big names. If you also have a look at the biggest funds which have biggest allocations, so you can have UTI, Kotak, Sundaram. So they have a big funds. They are having their allocation in this bank. And also if you have a look at the mutual fund shareholding changes during the past months, so in July banks were buying, August buying, September buying, October buying, November buying, December buying. So constantly people are buying, or institutions, mutual funds are buying this share consistently, because it went down huge. It was a huge buy at that point. It went down around, I think, 350 rupees. That was a huge deal. But then currently it went up pretty huge. Currently it's sitting around 920 rupees. So then let's have a look at the remuneration of directors. So the total remuneration for Mr. Sanjay Agarwal is 2.3 crore, and Mr. Uttam Tibrewal it's around 3.43 crores. So in total it's around 6 crores, and it's just 1% of the net profit, so that's nothing. So it's pretty good. And then if you have a look at their valuation, look at the chart. It increased from almost 500 rupees to 1100, and it fall back to almost 400 rupees. So that's a huge buy at this point, and it already went up to 920 rupees. So which is something we will discuss the valuation. So then if you have a look at the revenues from financial 2016, it's 1048 crores, and it increased to almost 4286 crores in financial 2020, and I expect it to go to 7222 crores in financial 2023, with a growth rate of 20% for financial 2021, 19% for 2022, and 18% for 2023. And the net profit, it increased from 247 crores to almost 675 crores in financial 2020, and I expect it to increase to 810 crores for 2021, 1013 crores for 2022, and 1235 crores for 2023. And then the net profit growth, it is increasing 78%, 31%, 77%, and I expect it to grow at 20 to 25% over the next 3 years. And then if you have a look at the price target with the current valuation, which is a PB value of 6.5, which is pretty expensive according to me, but they have a huge growth ahead, I understand. But according to me, currently it's priced at a higher value, because the price to book is 6.5. HDFC is valued at 5, Kotak Mahindra Bank is valued at 5.5, and this bank is valued at 6.5. So the current valuation, if you have to estimate the price target, it was 1099 rupees for 1 year, 1307 rupees for 2 year, and 1560 rupees for 3 year, and price cumulative growth of 19% for 1 year, 42% for 2 year, 70% for 3 year. But then I feel the price to book value is pretty on the higher side. I would be comfortable to estimate this price at 4, but since it has a huge growth rate ahead for the next 3 years, I am putting it at 5, but it can go down if there is some correction or some bad news about the company comes out. But currently I am estimating with the price target of PB 5. So for 1 year it's 845 rupees, in 2 year 1005 rupees, and 3 year 1200 rupees, with a growth rate of -8% for 1 year, 9% for 2 year, and 30% for the next 3 years. So I feel, my personal opinion is, this is a very good bank. They have a very good growth rate, and they have all the financial ratios and everything. It's pretty good. They have a huge growth ahead, and they are doing pretty good, and institutions are interested. All positive, everything is good. It's a very, very good company, and in all metrics, you can buy if you want to hold it for the next 10 years or so. It has a huge growth here, or 5 years for 10 years, and you are not expecting pretty huge return. So that's good. And if you already own this share, you can hold it. It's a very good bank. But then for me personally, I am not comfortable to enter this bank or buy at this point of time. So I will not buy at this price, but I will put this bank on my watch list. If if the bank had any price corrections, if it go back to 600 or 700 values, or even 550 or 600 or even 700, I will be interested in buying. But currently I will not enter at this price level. So I am not a financial advisor, so you have to do your due diligence before investing in any stock. So this is my personal opinion, so you have to do your due diligence. So that's all for today. Thank you for watching, and have a nice day. If you like this video, like, share, and subscribe to this channel, and have a nice day. Bye bye.